Happy race day, everyone. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good afternoon for some, possibly. Yeah, probably not unless you're across seas. How's everyone doing? We got a race day today. We are at Richmond. We got some more short track racing. We got a lot to talk about here. Just getting things set up. So just give me a couple seconds here. See, we've got 12, 15 people in already, so that is awesome. Let me jump over to the chat. Chase that Elliot. That is always the first comment in chat. Happy Sunday, James. Happy Sunday, Liz. Happy race day. BVB09. Morning, ready for the show. Yeah, I got a lot to talk about today. Like I said, we got some short track racing. We got some practice to go over. We've got some correlations to go over. In terms of practice temperatures, one thing that we were discussing a little bit in chat, had a great question last night. They're talking about it, 20 to 30 degree track temperature difference between yesterday, which was pretty cool at Richmond in terms of the practice and qualifying, into what we're going to see at the race today. So my take on that, for anyone that did not see that in chat, is just simply that I'm still going to be looking at drivers. I'm going to actually, while we're talking about this, head over on the practice tab and we'll have a look at that. So ultimately, I'm still looking for drivers who progressed well through their 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 lap averages. The drivers who were fastest yesterday, I still think are going to be a little bit faster than those drivers. But the big difference now in the race is going to be who makes the best adjustments and who does their pit stops the fastest to get track position, because track position is huge. So that's one thing. I like to start out each and every show. It kind of leads us into, are we looking for more place differential? Are we looking for more dominators today? So that is where I start. So we're going to go over here to the quality pass tool, is the one that I want to use today. I've talked about the correlation. I just need to get access to that tool and it will populate here in just a second. There we go. This is one. This correlation is the correlation between qualifying position and finishing position. Now, that leaves a lot of information out just simply because what you see in terms of these correlations is just simply that. The qualifying position, finishing position, does not even look at anything or factor in anything that happens in the middle of the race whatsoever. Something that does that a little bit better is the quality pass tool. And I've also got my track history tab up here. So as you can see, obviously Talladega, there's a lot of passing. Anytime you see, the super speedway races and stuff like that, you're going to see that. So Daytona, Talladega at the top. Now, the one thing to see with Atlanta, seeing as they turned it into a super speedway, is it now correlates with super speedway in terms of the quality passes that we see per lap. And a quality pass, what they kind of define it as, is not passing your lap car. So it's passing cars on the lead lap and completing a pass. So coming from behind them, going all the way around and being clear, I think is exactly how they determine a quality pass. So with that said, looking at Richmond, looking at some of these short flat tracks, which this one is, here's what we qualify it as. Phoenix we've had already this year. And as you can see, the difference with the new car versus the old car wasn't a whole lot in terms of the quality pass. And it was still tough to pass on at Phoenix. Now, Richmond is even harder to pass. As you can see, the correlation is down even further. It's some of the hardest out there. So track position is always key. So that's one thing we're going to look at. Now, when we go back and we look at the cheat sheet, we see some of these starting positions. Well, we got Kyle Larson starting 21st. So ultimately, right now, I'm looking at kind of a mixture. We're going to need, looking at the past track history here at Richmond, we're going to need at least 2 dominators. There is a lot of times where we see multiple. So last year, Denny Hamlin led 197. Truex led 80. But if we look at some of these other previous races in terms of dominators, we've seen 200 and 107. So there's 2 big dominators. Then we see these other ones where we had Keselowski lead 192. Then we got Logano and Dillon 45, 55. We got 2 more in here at 40. So we had 5 drivers over 40 laps led here and 1 that almost reached 200. So we're going to need dominators for sure. These drivers that are highlighted in green from last year's race, those are the perfect lineups from Line Star. So if you're kind of going through and researching there, I added a little tab here for salary so you can see that. So we can kind of look at that. So as you can see, the dominators are in these winning lineups, and what we see here from the perfect lineup, which is going to be a little bit different in terms of the optimal lineups, is stars and scrubs. Like as you see here, 66, 6, and 57. Oh, who remembers the days when we could get Ross Chastain at 6,000? Yeah, that's come and gone. 72 last race, and then today, as you can see, he's way up here in the 89. It won't be long before he's in the 9 and the 10K range with the rest of the elite drivers. Okay, so before we move on there, I just want to make sure we go through these questions. Andre, thanks for tuning in. Kenny, morning, bud. Thanks for tuning in. Louis, okay, what's the chances of Haley getting back on the lead lap? I don't think it's there's definitely some risk there doing that, but not completely concerned there with that pass through. I believe is what he has there to start the race. Okay, so moving over, a couple of the things I wanted to look at was the salary trend here. So a couple things that stood out to me. First of all, and I know these salaries are out before we see practice and qualifying, but Ryan Blaney, first of all, starting on the pole, and we talked about these track conditions changing. So actually, that's one thing I wanted to mention first, and I also mentioned in chat with these practice, with the importance of pit stops here, which are chaos at Richmond, by the way. Toyota is doing, I think they're the only ones today, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know the Toyotas have been practicing a new choreography for their pit stops. It includes both tire changers going around the front. It's supposed to shave, 2-3 tenths off their time. Now, looking at, I don't have the data, and I really tried to find this data last night. I could not find it. I did read a few articles, though. The number 9 team with Elliott and the number 18 with Kyle Busch are two of the top pit crew teams in NASCAR right now, and they're running about mid-9s consistently every week, mid-9-second pit stops. They figure with this Toyota change that some of these Toyotas, probably Kyle up top, Bell, Truex, Hamlin, even Bubba in there as well, could see Kurt Busch as well. These cars could end up seeing, if things go right, and they have practiced this a lot, it sounds like, getting into the sub 9 seconds, like the high 8-second pit stops. That could be huge, especially being that we're going, the difference in track temperatures, that adjustments are going to be absolutely corollary to winning this race and being optimal on the track today. So if they can get that going right and gain, 2-3 tenths on everyone else, 3, 4, 5 pit stops today, that is going to be huge. So make sure, it's risky. I think it is very risky if they're the only team doing it, because if it doesn't go right, you're looking at a disaster from the Toyotas today. So that's kind of why I have them as like GPP only plays for me. It's just a little bit risky. My favorite of those guys would be Truex and Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell down here price too. But we'll get into some plays here in a second. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at the, we'll say the track temperature difference from yesterday to today. With that said, looking at this top tier and getting into that salary trends here, Ryan Blaney stands out starting from the pole. Hasn't had success is trending here, but it hasn't been great. He finally got a top 10 in the playoff race here last year. What I like, starting on the pole, obviously track position's huge. He was the fastest in terms of 5:10, 15. He ran a 45 lap run actually, and kind of held on to that speed. The fall off here with the tires is something that's going to be very important, kind of work that into the pit stop side of things. So I do like that. I think he can be a dominator today and get out front and do that. If we look at something else I'll be looking at is the short flat, and this isn't the last 2 years. This is actually 2021, and then the one race this year, which was at Phoenix. So if you're looking at that data, we've got 9 races since the start of last year on short flat tracks. Shout out to Kenny for bringing us to you. Yes, for sure. Kenny, you are the man. Just trying to get that up in the screen. I move my screen around so it's on top of my screen, so I'm not always looking off to the side like this. And I would tell you, moving this mouse across the screens is impossible. Okay, so moving on. Looking at the top tier here, like I said, Kyle Larson stands out here. He's only 16th in the model. He hasn't been, great on the short flats. He hasn't been great here. He's got 2 wins at the short flats. Sorry, he hasn't been great here at Richmond, as you can see by the finishes. The practice times weren't there in terms of the overall average, but what did stand out, when it comes down to Larson versus Elliott at the top here, both have place differential, both are on top teams, both have had, I'm going to say, pretty good seasons. Although Elliott hasn't got a win yet, he does lead NASCAR in points, so that is really good to see. But it is Larson over Elliott for me at the top, just because of that 5, 10, 15 lap averages. The long run, it looks like Larson's got the better car here, and he also gives you that +3 in terms of place differential if you're playing on DraftKings, which is only 1.5 points if you're playing on FanDuel, so keep that in mind as well. Then moving down, like I said, I like Kyle Larson. So my top 2, I guess, in the top tier here right now, I like stacking Larson and Blaney gives you the top dominator. I think Larson, there's a chance, late in the race, he could pick up 50. He could be one of those 40 to 50 lap sled guys. There's upside, obviously, for more than that. But it's most definitely there. Starting 21st, you get the place differential and you get the dominator points out of Kyle Larson. He will most definitely be in that optimal lineup at only 10-2. And if we look at that pricing here, is what I wanted to jump over to. Kyle Larson at 10-2, that is a season low. Kind of hard not to buy low on Kyle Larson right now. The other buy low is my other core play in the top is Ryan Blaney. He's also at a season low at 9,400. If there was no salary here, those two would probably still be my favorite. So the fact that they're both at a season low price absolutely locks that in for me. I think they're going to be top three in ownership, probably 1-2, I would guess. Elliott's probably going to be up there too with that place differential, but most definitely Larson and Blaney, my top core today. And like I had mentioned with the, looking at the Richmond track history tab and the guys in green, which is the perfect lineup from years past, races past, and I only did the 2 races last year. As you can see, very stars and scrubs. So my lineup build could be very similar to what we've seen in the fall here, because Truex and Hamlin prices are very similar. But we can fit another driver in there if we want to go super stars and scrubs. And I'll talk about some of these lower end plays that I like here in a bit. Haley is one of them. Probably going to be, yes, Liz, I agree with you. Blaney is due for a win. JJ, morning. How do I feel about Haley? I was just about to jump down into that bottom range here and talk about Haley. That was one thing I wanted to look at, was just that penalty and just get complete clarification on that quickly. I believe he lost did he lose his crew chief and car chief? That's one thing I'm just scrolling up. Bob's got so many things and JC's got so many things coming here in the news channel. So if someone has that news, exactly what's going on there with that penalty, how many failures he had, please throw that up in chat here. If you could, that would be great. But moving on to these value guys that I do like. Haley's one of them. I will touch on him a little bit more. Starting 36, if he can get that back, I think there is a competition caution. So if he can not get lapped, which is tough, this is a short track, 0.75 miles, I believe. If he doesn't get lapped early, he's going to get that lap back. But if he gets lapped, it's going to be a long day for him. So there is some risk there at 6,300. Going a little bit cheaper, it's kind of hard to get away from Dillon for a couple of reasons. First of all, he's been solid finishing inside of where he's starting today in all of his races here. That is 7 of them, high of 20, low of 28, which is nice to see. Different car, obviously. He was in the 13, I believe, in almost all of those races. But moving over and looking since Daytona, he's got 4 top 20s in 5 races since Daytona. For someone that's 5,200, that is extremely consistent. I do like that a lot. 5 top 20s in 6 races, so he was top 20 at Daytona as well. The speed really wasn't there in practice, but starting 30th, if we start going over and looking at the matrix and what we need out of him down here at 5,200, because he's going to give us access to easily get Larson and Blaney and another guy another driver in the 9K and up range. So it's going to be a stars and scrubs. So we don't necessarily need 6X out of Dillon here, which to get that, we are looking at about an inside the top 20. So I kind of think that's maybe a little bit out of his realm, but I would take 5X out of him for sure. And 21 points, would be fine too. So if we go and check that out, we're looking for like a 25th to 23rd, like 23rd to 25th from Dillon is excellent. That's kind of his medium finish. He's finished top 20 in 4 of his last 5 races since Daytona, 5 out of 6 overall. It just seems like he is a great value, points per dollar value here in the 42 car. So he's one that definitely stands out to me. Going up a little bit, Cole Custer, starting 12th, might be a little bit lower owned because of that, because you got Justin Haley starting 36. I don't know where people are going to exactly fall on that if he does have to do that pass through at the start of the race. Ricky Stenhouse, not too interested, but starting 32nd, I mean, it's kind of hard to not. He has a top 10 in 5 races here, so he hasn't been nearly as consistent. I would definitely prefer Haley between the two, even with the chance that he could get lapped with a little bit of risk. I mean, there's still a ton of risk with Ricky, and he's starting on the lead lap, so I'll take Haley just a little bit over Stenhouse there. Chris Buescher this week starting 18th. I'm not completely sure how I'm going to go on that one. We've been on him quite a bit lately, but going up a little bit more, you find one of my favorite drivers. The model likes him as well. He's number 14 is Austin Dillon, starting 25th. Just comes down to his consistency here. He's finished 11th or better in 5 of his last 6 with 3 top 10s. You come over and look at the short flat history since the start of last year, 9 races. He is one of, what is there here? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 or 7 drivers that finished top 20 in at least 8 of those races. He's only got 1 top 10, but starting 25th for him, if we look at the matrix at 7K, which is a great price, we're looking at about 5X in this range would be excellent. That's kind of in that 16th, 17th. He's going to get some fast laps in there, I think, as well. So 16th, 17th, and I think he's got upside of, again, 10th to 13th. So he's in that 6, 7X range. And when we look at previous, what value we're looking for to win a GPP, these previous perfect lineups almost used all the salary in both of these. I believe this one was $100 left over. I believe the first race last year was about $300 left over in this perfect lineup. And they both hit about 8.1, 8.2X value on DraftKings. So because there's 400 laps, obviously there's more laps. It's going to take a higher score. So getting 2 dominators in there is going to be key. So I think to win a GPP, because those are the perfect lineups, I think we're looking at like 7.5X somewhere in there. To cash comfortably, we're going to need in that 6X range. So a little bit higher than we've been looking at in the past. One more thing I wanted to look at in terms of comparing, and I should have touched on this earlier in the show, but one thing I was comparing was Phoenix, which we've already raced this year, just to kind of compare. Now, what you see here is the actual number of quality passes, not per lap. That's below. The actual number of quality passes. So Phoenix C942 this year, 888, 993, 800. So it generally ranges between 800 and 1,000 over the last 5 races at Phoenix. Now, that is only on about 312 laps at that race. Now we come to Richmond. First thing I see is generally lower quality passes. Now there's 100 more laps. So we're getting about, on average, about 50 less quality passes here versus Phoenix, which is already tough to pass. And we are getting 100 more laps at this race as well. So that's just another reason why I really, track position is so huge here. The tire fall off. So having that number 1 pit stall is huge for Blaney. Now, before we move on, if anyone here is new, you're not a member of my Patreon or DFSR, and you want to get a copy of the sheet with all my picks, rankings, access to our Discord with the NASCAR news channel, the NASCAR chat channel, head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs. And for $10 a month American, $13.50 Canadian, you get access to our NASCAR package, which covers the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series, as well as the new, it's going to be changed, rebranded here soon. It's going to be called the Racing Package because I've introduced a new F1 sheet as well. So you really get 4 series there for the price of 1. $10 a month, $13.50 Canadian gets you access to that NASCAR package. Or if you play more than one sport, you can sign up for $20 American, $27 Canadian, and get access to all of our sports. I think we're up to 12 or 13 right now, about 10 live. Baseball starts on Thursday, folks. Baseball starts on Thursday. All right, back to the race here. Looking at those perfect lineups, I want to talk about some more value plays that stand out. I talked about Cole Custer. I think there's going to be a little bit lower ownership there because he is starting 12th, so there's some risk there. He needs to pretty much, practice time is what stood out. He was 19th, 10th, and 7th, so he progressed very nicely throughout the 5, 10, and 15, throughout the long run. He got better in terms of his ranking and, not falling off as much as some of the other drivers as they got their long run. So he's got a little bit of gain there, a little bit of notes that they can go off of here today. 2 top 20s in 5 of his last races, 4 top 20s in his last 9 short flat tracks. And then if we go look at what we're kind of looking to get out of him, we're looking for that 30 points. I don't think 25 points is going to kill us, which is a 15th place finish. So if he can hold on to 15th, he's not going to kill your lineup. I think that's more of a, if you're playing cash games, maybe single entry GPP where the cash line's a little bit lower. I think we can most definitely take a 15th place finish from him. But to get his ultimate upside, if you're playing him in GPP formats, you're really going to need him to not really lose any spots and possibly gain some. And I've only got him in about, I'd say an 8th to 12th place would be his ultimate upside. So I do think there is upside there. I've got him a little bit more as a GPP play, but depending on that Haley news here, which I'm going to check out right after this. Sorry, I didn't have that up and ready. People are going to be on Bubba here starting 29th because he gives you that place differential. Same kind of ways they're on Ricky. I think it's a little bit more risky with those two. Not so big on Bubba in terms of the short flat tracks here. I was just going to bring up that Daddy. I got to scroll down to find him. So that's never good. So in 9 races, he only got 2 top 20s, average run of 23.1, which is just a slightly a little bit better there. Now, that's one thing that I like to look at and use these tabs for research for is you can look at average finish all you want, and that's kind of what the model looks at. And it's something that I'm trying to work in is average run. So on the season, especially, is something I like to look at. And we're going to slide over here and have a look at that. Let's look at just even the last 5 races. Joey Logano, average finish 13.4, Tyler Reddick 13.4, and William Byron. These 3 drivers grouped together don't look like they're having the greatest to run here lately. Well, you go and look at their average run during these races, and it looks like they're about 3 to 5 positions better in terms of their average run. Ryan Blaney stands out. He's leading a ton of laps, but not finishing races. So back to what Liz said, he is due. He's almost 6 spots better in terms of his average run versus average finish. Kyle Larson, Chase Briscoe stand out here. Denny Hamlin, well, of course, he's only got 3 top 20s in his last 5 races and all season. Outside the top 20 in terms of average finish, 21.4, but average run of 13. So about 8 spots difference there. So that's something that I do look at a lot. Now, Ross Chastain at the top could be a candidate for regression. He average finish of 7.4. Almost 3 spots, 2.8 spots worse in terms of his average run. So that's just something I like to look at. Kurt Busch stands out when you're looking at regression candidates as well. Same with Eric Almirola. So that's one way I kind of look at that. And I usually, when comparing the average finish versus average run, it's usually on the track history side, just to see if that track history is actually true track history, or looking at current form, like the last 3 to 5 races, to see if the average run correlates with the average finish, or see if there's a real big discrepancy there. And if a guy's going to be high owned, like say Ross Chastain, you think he's going to be top 5 in ownership, this is maybe a good spot to maybe fade him. Has he been good on the short flats? Let's go look at that here real quick. So he's down the board in 11th in terms of average finish. But in terms of points, it's been good because the average starting position gives him that place differential. So on average, he's getting like +7. But he's 3 spots worse in terms of the average run. He's coming off a second at Phoenix, which was excellent. So it's iffy with him today, but I'm just kind of saying that if you're looking to fade a high ownership guy and he hasn't been running as good as he's been finishing in terms of those averages, that's maybe a spot that we can maybe find some leverage in terms of GPPs. All right, so I'm going to just kind of go through the questions here, see if I've missed anything. How is Truex speed? Really good. He's definitely my top Toyota here. I'll scroll up here. He's number 1 in the model because of it. 13th in overall average speed, but 6th, 4th, 3rd. He progressed as they went through the 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. Did he run any more than that? Let's have a look. I am blind. I cannot see him. He got up to 20 lap averages, and there was 10 drivers. So he was right in the middle in terms of 20 lap averages out of the 10 drivers that ended up running 10 laps. So, but I do like to see 6, 4, 3rd in the 5, 10, and 15 because there were quite a few drivers that ran that. So I do like his speed. I do like him for GPP. Again, he's not going to be core, and no Toyotas are going to be core for me if they are out there trying a new pit strategy. There's upside for sure. I just don't want them to be my highest exposure drivers today in my player pool, just simply because there's a lot of risk there. If you like a lot of risk, you think they're going to be maybe a little bit lower owned, people are overlooking that. People maybe aren't looking at that. Definitely go on that. Now, Redneck Crypto. This is something I looked at. One of the first things that I looked at on this track. This seems like a bargain for Harvick at 8K. It's hard to say no to Harvick at this price. I think he was 8K last week. Let's go look at that DK salary trend. Yeah. So this is a season low by a long shot for him, staying there because of last week. What happened to him here last week? Harvick. 11th, started 18th, so not bad. But overall, in terms of since Daytona, he's got the 4th best average finish, which the results haven't really been there in terms of upside. He's got a 6th at Phoenix, so that was really good. He's a monster on the short flat tracks. So getting him at 8K on a short flat track at a place that he's dominated, he showed speed in terms of 5, 10, and 15 lap averages, got better as he progressed through those 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. He's going to be close to a core play, and the only reason he's not is because Kurt Busch, and I said I wasn't going to have a Toyota as a core play. It's going to be tough with him starting 27th, but I'm kind of really torn on these two. Probably going to be equal on them just because Harvick overall hasn't been great. But again, the short flat, him at 8K, he has to be a core play. He's probably, I don't know how that ownership's going to work. The fact that Bowman, who's also a great play, I don't like that he didn't really go past the 10 lap runs, but he jumped from 23rd to 13th in terms of 5 to 10 lap averages. So I do like that. Starting 28th. The thing with those two is just comes down to math. Alex Bowman, we know how he's like the new closer. Speaking of Harvick, Bowman, no one talks about it in the whole entire race. And then all of a sudden there's 20, 30 laps to go. And Bowman is right up there in the top 5 and sneaking in wins left and right here. So to get 43 points and 5X out of him, we only need like a 15th place finish. For a driver that's, top 10, almost, it seems like he's a top 10 potential every single week, 5th to 10th. That just screams ultimate points per dollar value. I like that. At a 10th place finish, he's crushing 6X. And again, he's he won here in the spring last year. So definitely considering him. Kurt Busch, same story in terms of the place differential, and people tend to go towards the place differential. So there's going to be ownership there. I think Harvick maybe comes in a little bit lower owned. If that's the case, I'm going to be overweight for sure because he's a master on the short tracks and he's only 8K. He should be 9K and above, in my opinion, if they were looking at all those factors and using like a full model like this. So definitely another one that stands out in the same respect is Joey Logano. He's 4th in the model. Overall averages weren't great. Now that, again, keep in mind, these are averages. This isn't like NASCAR's ranking of the fastest lap in practice. This is the average of all laps. Keep that in mind. But what I do like to see is as they got into the long run, his speed got better. And then in terms of flat tracks, Logano's got top 5 in 4 of his last 5 and 7 of his last 9 races here at this track. And then the short flats, he's one of only 3 drivers, throw in Eric Almirola there, who finished each of the last 9 short flat tracks since the start of last year inside the top 20, and the only driver to finish 8 of those 9 races inside the top 10. So Logano and Harvick, both underpriced. I think Logano, I want to go back and look at this tool quick to make sure I'm saying that. Yeah, 9,200. So he went up 100 from last week, but that's still underpriced for him. They're both underpriced. So if you're playing the points per dollar game, I think you could easily build a lineup. And I'm bringing up my draft. I don't have my DraftKings up. I apologize. But those 4 drivers right there would make a real nice core. And I am going to open that DraftKings on one of these screens here. Also, if you're not a member, one thing I forgot to mention is I'm going to post the link in chat right now. That is the link to get into our Discord for free trial. You can hit us up, hit up the coaches, ask for some advice and stuff like that. You can head over to our free trial. You can't get into the actual NASCAR specific channels this week, but definitely hit up our coaches, myself, Dane, Kenny, or Ryan, and ask any questions that you may want to know about our service, pieces of the sheet, a couple of our top plays, maybe the top 5 in our rankings. Definitely willing to work with you there in terms of trial members. So get in and check that out. JJ asks, Kyle Busch looked really good in practice. Yeah, Toyotas are amazing here. Busch and Truex were the 2 best Toyotas in practice. I'm back to, in terms of DFS, I think a Toyota can win here, especially if this choreography on the pit stops works for them. Kyle is already a top 2, top 3 pit team in terms of speed this season in the mid 9s. If he can sneak that down into 9-second pit stops, I think he will have a chance late in this race to win. And if he can stick inside the top 5, well, they're, any of these Toyotas, if they can stick, if you see them kind of even sticking inside, let's say the top 10 throughout the race, get through 2 or 3 pit stops, and we have another late race pit stop, it could be huge having that many runs to get it perfected. And as long, if they go ahead and gain 2-3 spots late in the race, that could most definitely be the deciding factor and something I'm going to be watching for today. As for DFS, I'm just going to be underweight on the Toyotas, maybe outside of Kurt Busch because of that place differential plus price at 7,900. just because of the risk factor, trying something completely new, I'm thinking of the Chaos, sending 2 tire changers around the front of the car, not just for their own team, but for teams. If there's a lot of people pitting at once, not a green flag pit stop, but like a caution pit stop, all those cars coming down pit road, someone's going to get hit today. Maybe not on Kyle's team because he's in a pretty good spot at the front of that second, like where there's a gap on pit road there. He's got a gap in front of him before the next stall. So maybe not the 18, but the 78, Bell even as well in the 20. I think there maybe have some issues on pit road with that early in the race. But if they, like I said, if they can stick in the top 5, top 10, that could be a deciding factor. But a little bit underweight on DFS for me. Thank you for the question, JJ. So a couple I didn't touch on, like I said, I like Bowman and Busch if you're building place differential, and then some guys that may be a little bit lower on that we can pivot off of. I think Chastain, he's number 2. The model loves him. Although the short flat didn't look completely great, he was very consistent on the short flats. 4 top 10s, 8 top 20s. I think he could be a little bit lower on starting inside the top 10, especially with, people probably loading up on Larson, Elliott, stacking them together, or Larson and Truex with the Toyotas, Kyle Busch. I think there's going to be some ownership, Blaney, obviously. And then people are going to be jumping down, I think, into, like you said, Harvick, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman with that place differential, and then jumping down to here. So I think Chastain could come a little bit lower on, which would be great. Bell and Chastain are 2 of the guys kind of in that range. I think Bell for sure, a little bit lower owned, that I think could make nice pivots today. Now, Chastain didn't run. He only ran a 5-lap run in practice, but he was fast. Don't know how the long run car is going to go, but they've been pretty good in terms of pit road this season, so not too concerned. Bell was top 5 in 5, 10, and 15-lap averages, so I do like to see that as well. And then kind of as we scroll down, I talked about Eric Amarola. The model really likes him because he's good on short flat tracks. He's good here. And he, the practice times, I would have liked to see him run a 15 and 20 lap average to see if that regression was real or not. Kind of the same with Daniel Suarez, went from 11th in the short run, 5 lap averages, and then they dropped off big time, both of them, 6 and 8 spots, 10 and 8 spots in terms of their 10 lap averages. So something to pay attention to there with them as well. And then in terms of FanDuel, a couple plays that stand. Obviously, Blaney at 9,500. Like, he should be 80% owned today, I would think. At least in cash games, at least 60% owned, 70, pushing 70 on FanDuel at 95. I will be playing FanDuel and DraftKings today. I think we got quite a bit of time until we have lock. Started the show a little bit earlier today, so I'm just going to bring up DraftKings and kind of build a core here before we close things out. So if you got any final questions, throw them at me now. I'm just loading my DraftKings, and I will slide that over, and we will build a lineup together here real quick. Okay, slide this up here. So I wanted to see, first of all, if we can get the Larson, Blaney, Bowman, even Harvick in there as well. Yeah, 69.50. So quite easy, because I talked about liking Ty Dillon. If you go throw Ty Dillon in there and play, it's not even really stars and scrubs to me playing Harvick at 8K, playing Bowman at 8,500. Blaney's underpriced at 9,400. Larson at 10.2. Like I said, he is a season low as well. So it doesn't even feel like a super stars and scrubs like we looked at in terms of the previous perfect lineups. But you can get Dillon in there, Ty Dillon in there. You can go back up to 8,700. We talked about Christopher Bell possibly being lower owned. Briscoe's for sure going to be lower owned, starting 4th. And if he can finish top 5, I think that could be a great play. Reddick 16th, Kurt Busch, you can go for some more place differential. Not only does that give you place differential, but it also gives you some remaining salary to differentiate yourself a little bit. So my number one core, I guess, right now, those are the 2 drivers that I like most in the top. But combining that with Kevin Harvick, who this would be a good week to have more of a turner. Like I said, the last 5 races since Daytona, he's got the 4th best average finish. He was good at Phoenix. He's really, really good on the short flats, and he's at a season low price. So these 3, this would be, what do we call this? Underpriced core, because all of them are at season low prices here. So you could definitely go there. It leaves you 7,400 and a lot of options. If you want to go Logano, I talked about him. Like I said, Ty Dillon. But if you don't want to go there and you want to go Haley, which I don't think, I'm definitely going to be moving Haley to a GPP only play now, regardless, just because of so many other underpriced. It feels like this is more of a balanced build, to be honest. But I mean, these are all, well, 3 of the 4 of them are championship drivers. And Blaney, I would say, is pretty close. Definitely consistent top 5 to 10 in the series for sure. Going to be pushing for a championship, I think, here soon into that final 4 in terms of playoffs. So you get 4 championship drivers and you're left with 6,600. So I mean, now you can come in here and you can throw in Ty Dillon, like I said, and it gets you back up into another mid-range championship driver and Kurt Busch starting 27th. So you can get 4 championship drivers, 4 champions of the sport in there. And I mean, that doesn't mean anything, but it just means experience. But experience on short, flat tracks. If there's experience needed at a track more than any other tracks, it is short, flat tracks to me. Guys that do well on short, flat tracks tends to carry over through the years. It's just more handling. It's more driver related versus aerodynamic. Brakes, handling the brakes, who handles their tires best. Because, I mean, you can drive. Blaney said it best, those laps that they ran in qualifying, the laps they run in the race will be nothing like those laps they ran in qualifying. So keep that in mind when you're breaking those two apart. The correlation between qualifying laps and race laps, especially here, is a huge gap. All right, so that covers pretty much all the drivers. Coming up in about half an hour, 45 minutes or so, I'm going to have my rankings tab populated for the members here as well. I have 15 drivers I will have ranked in terms of my own player pool and how I'm constructing my lineup. So I like to build my lineups out first to see where those fall, so I don't have to do too many adjustments before the race starts. I will announce in chat when I am done that. I will post that and screenshot it in there as well. I will probably post the top 5 for the trial members, so make sure to grab that free trial link. I'm going to post it here one more time for everybody. If you want to come in and check it out, I will post that today. My top 5 in my rankings, which is going to be a core. You'll be able to put it together. So instead of screenshotting like a 4-driver core for DraftKings, you can just go off my rankings, both for the trial members as well as the full members. Okay, Jeremy, what about Tyler Reddick? Fast in practice, starting 16th. Yeah, definitely. He's going to be mid-tier in terms of ownership. I like him a lot more on DraftKings here. As you can see, he's 10-8 on FanDuel. He does obviously deserve that price the way he has raced, but starting 16th, I like him. He's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s in his last 5 races. He's only got one. He's got a top 5, 2 top 10s, but he's been very consistent on the short flats. 11th, 20th, and 15th is a nice floor. 2 of the 3 of those races is a nice floor for him with that 8,200 price tag on DraftKings. So I'm going to be about what the field is. I'm thinking he's probably going to be in the 15 to 18% owned range. I'm probably going to be right in that range too, probably 2 or 3 in my 20 max today. So yeah, I'm with you on him. One last question, thoughts on Harrison Burton? Okay. I haven't talked about him. He's not in my player pool as of now, starting 17th. He's only got 1 race here, finished 29th, on the short flats. This year, he's got 2 top 20s. Let's just go look at exact current form here. Was running very good at Daytona, I remember, because I picked him in my one and done, and Brad Keselowski took him out. 2 top 20s since Daytona. 1 last week, 17th on a road course. Not really looking too much into that. 25th at Atlanta, 29th at Phoenix, 16th at Vegas, 33rd. So kind of looking at him in the 25th range, I guess. Let's go with that. 25th is going to get us, 9 points. For him to not totally destroy our lines, we're looking for about 23 points, and he needs to finish inside the top 20. That is very risky for me. I actually like Bubba Wallace a little bit better. I like Cole Custer a little bit better because, like I said, Custer at 25 points to not kill our lineup in that same price range. We're only looking for like a 15th. If he gets a fast lap or 2 in there, a 16th place finish, that's more safe to me than Harrison Burton needing a top 20. So I am on 0 Harrison Burton today. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Like I said, grab that free trial, get in. I will share some core. I'll have my rankings up in about 30 to 45 minutes as well. Head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs, and you can sign up to the NASCAR package if you want the full rankings, as well as my cores that I will be sharing in our NASCAR Talk channel. Thanks for tuning in. See some green screens, and I'll see you in winning picks later today. Cheers, everyone.